Question 1. Market research demonstrates that a significant number of applicants to Al-Hussein bin Talal University are international students. During the administration of the entrance examination, a proctor observes an applicant exhibiting behavior that strongly suggests they are using unauthorized external assistance, such as subtle hand signals to another applicant. The proctor is aware of the university's strict policies against academic dishonesty, but is also under pressure to ensure the smooth and timely completion of the examination for all candidates. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the proctor? Strictly adhering to the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines. Option A. Ignore the behavior to avoid disrupting the examination and potentially causing distress to other candidates, assuming it might be a misunderstanding. Option B. Confront the applicant directly and confiscate any suspected materials, making a judgment on the spot about their guilt. Option C. Discuss the observation with other proctors during a break to gauge their opinions before deciding on any action. Option D. Discreetly document the observed behavior with specific details and report it immediately to the chief invigilator or designated examination supervisor for further investigation according to university protocol. Correct answer is D. Discreetly document the observed behavior with specific details and report it immediately to the chief invigilator or designated examination supervisor for further investigation according to university protocol. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for accurate admissions data with the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the entrance examination process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create an incentive to overlook irregularities, but adherence to the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's established examination regulations and ethical guidelines is paramount. Careful judgment is required to identify and address potential breaches without compromising the fairness and validity of the exam. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented investigation of the observed anomaly, adhering strictly to the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's examination integrity policies. This includes gathering evidence, consulting with the designated examination committee or relevant university officials as per the established procedures, and ensuring that any action taken is consistent with the university's regulations regarding academic misconduct. This approach is ethically justified by the principle of fairness to all applicants and the university's commitment to academic integrity. It upholds the credibility of the entrance examination and the university itself. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring the observation due to time constraints or pressure to meet targets is ethically flawed. It violates the duty to uphold academic integrity and can lead to unfair advantages for some applicants, undermining the principle of equal opportunity. This failure to act can also set a precedent for future misconduct. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately disqualifying the applicant without a proper investigation or consultation, is procedurally unsound and potentially unfair. It bypasses the established due process outlined in the university's regulations, which typically requires evidence and a fair hearing. This can lead to wrongful accusations and damage the university's reputation for fairness. A further incorrect approach, such as discussing the observation with other faculty members not involved in the examination oversight or with external parties without authorization, violates confidentiality protocols and can lead to the spread of unsubstantiated rumors, compromising the integrity of the investigation and the privacy of the applicant. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established regulations and ethical principles. This involves 1. Identifying the potential issue and its implications. 2. Consulting the relevant university policies and procedures for handling such situations. 3. Gathering objective evidence in a discreet and professional manner. 4. Reporting the findings to the appropriate authority within the university for investigation and decision-making. 5. Ensuring all actions taken are documented and align with the university's commitment to fairness and academic integrity. Question 2. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive evaluation of the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance examinations' effectiveness in identifying suitable candidates who align with the university's academic and strategic objectives. Which of the following approaches best reflects a professional and ethical method for assessing and potentially refining the examination process? Option A. Increase the total number of questions on the examination significantly to cover a broader range of topics, assuming this will improve candidate selection. Option B. Immediately revise the examination's difficulty level to ensure a higher pass rate, thereby meeting projected enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the current examination structure, content, and scoring mechanisms, comparing its outcomes against established university admission standards and strategic enrollment goals, and propose evidence-based modifications. Option D. Prioritize making the examination easier for the current applicant pool to reduce stress and improve immediate acceptance rates. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the current examination structure, content, and scoring mechanisms, comparing its outcomes against established university admission standards and strategic enrollment goals, and propose evidence-based modifications. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical imperative to ensure fair and transparent admission processes. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to deviate from established procedures, potentially compromising the integrity of the entrance exam. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic standards while also considering the university's operational needs. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing admission criteria and the exam's alignment with the university's strategic objectives, followed by a data-driven assessment of potential improvements. This aligns with best practices in strategic planning and university governance, emphasizing evidence-based decision-making and adherence to established academic policies. The Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam regulations likely mandate a structured and objective approach to admissions, prioritizing merit and fairness. Any proposed changes must be evaluated against these foundational principles to ensure they enhance, rather than undermine, the quality and equity of the student selection process. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proposing immediate adjustments to the exam's difficulty to meet enrollment targets without a comprehensive review is an incorrect approach. This bypasses the necessary due diligence and risks introducing bias or compromising the academic rigor expected of university entrance examinations. It fails to consider the long-term implications for the university's reputation and the quality of its student body, suggesting a significant increase in the number of questions without assessing the impact on test takers' time or the validity of the assessment is also professionally unsound. Such a change, if not supported by pedagogical research and alignment with learning outcomes, could lead to a less effective measure of student aptitude and potentially disadvantage candidates. Focusing solely on the perceived ease of the exam for current applicants, without considering the broader strategic goals of the university or the need for challenging yet fair assessment, represents a narrow and potentially detrimental perspective. This approach prioritizes short-term expediency over long-term academic excellence and institutional integrity. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with evaluating university entrance exams should adopt a systematic approach. This involves understanding the university's mission and strategic plan, reviewing current policies and procedures, gathering data on exam performance and applicant profiles, and consulting with relevant stakeholders, e.g., faculty, admissions officers. Any proposed changes should be evidence-based, ethically sound, and demonstrably aligned with the university's commitment to academic quality and fairness. A structured review process, often involving committees and formal proposals, is crucial for ensuring that decisions are well considered and defensible. Question 3. Examination of the data shows a candidate during the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam exhibiting behavior that strongly suggests they are attempting to cheat by using unauthorized materials. What is the most appropriate immediate action to uphold the integrity of the examination process according to university guidelines? Option A. Ignore the behavior to avoid disrupting the examination environment. Option B. Discreetly report the observed suspicious behavior to the examination proctor or the designated university official overseeing the exam. Option C. Confront the candidate directly to inquire about their actions. Option D. Discuss the observation with other students present to gauge their opinions. The correct answer is B. Discreetly report the observed suspicious behavior to the examination proctor or the designated university official overseeing the exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead some students to seek unfair advantages. Navigating this requires a strong understanding of Al-Hussein bin Talal University's specific academic regulations and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent reporting of the observed suspicious activity to the appropriate university authority, such as the admissions committee or the examination proctoring team. This aligns with the university's stated commitment to fair and equitable assessment processes, as outlined in its academic integrity policies. By reporting, the individual upholds the principle of academic honesty, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit and that the integrity of the entrance examination is maintained. This proactive measure prevents potential breaches of academic misconduct and safeguards the reputation of the university. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior. This failure to act allows potential academic misconduct to go unchecked, undermining the fairness of the examination for all other candidates. It implicitly condones dishonest practices and violates the ethical obligation to contribute to a fair academic environment. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly. While seemingly proactive, this bypasses the established university procedures for handling academic integrity issues. It could lead to an escalation of the situation, potential accusations of harassment, and may not effectively resolve the issue according to university policy. Furthermore, it places the individual in a position of judgment and enforcement that is not their designated role. A third incorrect approach would be to discuss the observation with other students. This constitutes gossip and a breach of confidentiality. It can create unnecessary anxiety among other candidates, potentially damage the reputation of the accused student without due process, and does not contribute to a formal resolution of the suspected misconduct. University policies typically emphasize discretion and reporting through official channels. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the observed behavior. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and regulations regarding academic integrity and examination conduct. 3. Determining the most appropriate and authorized channel for reporting such concerns. 4. Acting promptly and discreetly through the established channels, providing factual information without speculation. 5. Maintaining confidentiality throughout the process. Question 4. Assessment of a candidate's understanding of the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam's academic integrity policy, specifically concerning the use of unauthorized aids during the examination. Option A. Relying solely on personal knowledge and preparation, strictly adhering to all provided instructions and prohibitions. Option B. Attempting to use notes or external resources that were not explicitly permitted by the examination guidelines. Option C. Collaborating with other candidates by sharing information or answers during the exam. Option D. Assuming that any information not explicitly forbidden is permitted for use during the examination. The correct answer is A. Relying solely on personal knowledge and preparation, strictly adhering to all provided instructions and prohibitions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam, especially for a prestigious institution like Al-Hussein bin Talal University, can lead some individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the principles of fairness, honesty, and equal opportunity for all candidates, while also recognizing the pressures faced by students. Careful judgment is required to identify and address potential breaches of academic integrity without unfairly penalizing genuine effort. The correct approach involves a proactive and ethical stance, prioritizing the integrity of the examination process. This entails understanding and adhering strictly to the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's stated regulations regarding academic honesty and examination conduct. Specifically, it requires the candidate to rely solely on their own knowledge and preparation, without seeking or utilizing any unauthorized assistance. This aligns with the university's commitment to assessing individual merit and ensuring a level playing field for all applicants. The ethical justification stems from the fundamental principle of honesty in academic pursuits, which is a cornerstone of any reputable educational institution. An incorrect approach would be to engage in any form of academic dishonesty, such as attempting to access or use unauthorized materials during the exam. This directly violates the explicit rules and regulations of the Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam, which are designed to ensure a fair and objective assessment. Such actions undermine the credibility of the examination process and devalue the achievements of honest candidates. Ethically, this constitutes a breach of trust and a lack of integrity, which are unacceptable in an academic environment. Another incorrect approach would be to misinterpret or disregard the examination instructions, even if unintentionally. For instance, if the instructions clearly prohibit the use of certain aids, a candidate's assumption that they are permitted would still constitute a violation. This highlights the importance of meticulous attention to detail and a thorough understanding of all exam guidelines provided by Hussein bin Talal University. A further incorrect approach would be to collaborate with other candidates during the examination, even if it appears to be a casual exchange of information. The entrance exam is designed to evaluate individual capabilities, and any form of collusion defeats this purpose and violates the principles of individual assessment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and ethical principles. Candidates must internalize the importance of academic integrity and the consequences of its violation. Before and during the examination, they should actively seek clarification on any ambiguous instructions and commit to upholding the highest standards of honesty. If faced with a situation where they are unsure about the permissibility of an action, the safest and most ethical course is to refrain from it and seek guidance from the examination proctors. Question 5. Which approach would be most appropriate for the Hussein bin Talal University Admissions Committee when reviewing an applicant whose submitted academic transcripts appear to have a minor discrepancy with the stated minimum grade point average requirement, but who is otherwise a highly recommended candidate? Option A. Directly admit the applicant based on the faculty recommendation, assuming the discrepancy is minor and the candidate's potential is high. Option B. Reject the applicant immediately due to the failure to meet the stated grade point average requirement without further investigation. Option C. Adjust the applicant's submitted academic records to align with the minimum grade point average requirement to ensure admission. Option D. Investigate the discrepancy by contacting the applicant for clarification and any supporting documentation, while simultaneously reviewing the university's policies on borderline cases and permissible exceptions before making a final decision. The correct answer is A. Directly admit the applicant based on the faculty recommendation, assuming the discrepancy is minor and the candidate's potential is high. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for university admissions committees, balancing the desire to admit promising students with the need to adhere strictly to established academic and ethical guidelines. The challenge lies in interpreting the spirit of the regulations while upholding their letter, especially when faced with exceptional circumstances. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's academic record against the stated entrance requirements, seeking clarification from the applicant regarding any discrepancies, and then making a decision based on the established criteria and any permissible exceptions outlined in the Hussein bin Talal University's admission regulations. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible because it prioritizes adherence to the university's official policies and procedures. It ensures that all applicants are evaluated on a consistent and fair basis, and it maintains the credibility of the admissions process. Seeking clarification directly from the applicant demonstrates a commitment to understanding the full context of their application and avoids making assumptions. An incorrect approach would be to admit the student based solely on a recommendation from a faculty member without verifying the applicant's qualifications against the official entrance requirements. This fails to uphold the regulatory framework of the university's admissions process, which mandates specific academic criteria for entry. It also creates an ethical issue of favoritism and undermines the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the applicant outright without investigating the discrepancy or allowing them an opportunity to provide further documentation or explanation. This could be seen as an overly rigid interpretation of the rules, potentially overlooking valid reasons for the discrepancy and failing to act with due diligence in assessing the applicant's potential. It may also violate principles of fairness if the university has established procedures for handling such situations. A third incorrect approach would be to alter the applicant's academic records to meet the entrance requirements. This is a severe ethical and regulatory violation, constituting academic dishonesty and fraud. It completely disregards the integrity of the admissions process and the university's commitment to academic standards. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific regulations and guidelines governing university admissions. 2. Identifying any discrepancies or ambiguities in an applicant's file. 3. Seeking clarification from the applicant and relevant university departments. 4. Evaluating the information against established criteria and policies. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind it. 6. Escalating complex or borderline cases to a higher authority or committee if necessary. Question 6. Implementation of a revised admissions policy at Hussein bin Talal University that allows for the direct admission of candidates recommended by government officials, bypassing the standard entrance examination, is being proposed. As a member of the admissions committee, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure adherence to the university's regulatory framework and ethical standards? Option A. Advocate for the strict adherence to the existing entrance examination and admission criteria, emphasizing the importance of merit-based selection as per university regulations. Option B. Support the proposed policy change, arguing that it will foster stronger relationships with government bodies and potentially increase enrollment. Option C. Propose a separate, expedited admission process for government-recommended candidates, with a modified assessment that is less demanding than the standard entrance exam. Option D. Suggests that the entrance examination scores for government-recommended candidates be adjusted post-exam to meet a predetermined threshold for admission. The correct answer is A. Advocate for the strict adherence to the existing entrance examination and admission criteria, emphasizing the importance of merit-based selection as per university regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to admit qualified students. The university entrance exam for Hussein bin Talal University is designed to assess a candidate's readiness for higher education based on merit. Introducing external influence or preferential treatment undermines this core principle, potentially admitting students who are not adequately prepared, which could lead to higher dropout rates and a diminished reputation for the university. Careful judgment is required to uphold the fairness and validity of the examination process. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the established examination regulations and admission criteria of Hussein bin Talal University. This means evaluating all candidates solely on their performance in the entrance exam and any other officially stipulated academic requirements. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant, as it ensures equal opportunity for all applicants and maintains the integrity of the selection process. It aligns with the university's commitment to academic excellence and meritocracy, as mandated by its internal regulations and any overarching educational policies governing higher education institutions in Jordan. An incorrect approach would be to consider the recommendation from a prominent figure for admission without regard to the exam results. This action directly violates the principle of merit-based admission and disregards the established examination framework. It introduces an element of bias and favoritism, which is ethically unacceptable and likely contravenes the university's admission policies and potentially Jordanian higher education regulations. Such a practice erodes trust in the fairness of the admissions process and can lead to legal challenges if it can be proven that established procedures were bypassed. Another incorrect approach would be to create a separate, less rigorous admission track for individuals recommended by influential people. This also undermines the integrity of the entrance exam and creates an unfair advantage for a select group. It is ethically problematic as it suggests that some candidates are held to a different standard, which is discriminatory and violates the spirit of equal opportunity. This would also likely be in violation of university regulations that mandate a uniform application of admission criteria. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the university's official admission policies and the governing regulations for higher education. When faced with external pressure or requests that seem to deviate from these established procedures, a professional must first consult the relevant documentation. If the request appears to conflict with the regulations, the next step is to politely but firmly decline the request, explaining that adherence to the established, fair, and transparent admission process is paramount. Escalating the matter to a supervisor or the admissions committee for guidance is also a crucial step if there is any ambiguity or if the pressure persists. The ultimate goal is to protect the integrity of the institution and ensure that all decisions are made on objective, merit-based criteria. Question 7. Strategic planning requires a careful consideration of how to achieve institutional growth while upholding the integrity of the admission process. Considering the specific regulatory framework governing the Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam, which of the following approaches best aligns with both strategic objectives and ethical obligations? Option A. Developing enrollment targets based on a thorough analysis of historical admission data, current market demand for specific programs, and the university's capacity to deliver quality education, ensuring all recruitment efforts are aligned with the established admission criteria. Option B. Aggressively pursuing increased student enrollment by lowering admission standards for certain programs to meet ambitious growth targets, regardless of the academic preparedness of applicants. Option C. Implementing a strategy that prioritizes the recruitment of students based on their social connections to university faculty and administration, rather than their academic merit. Option D. Focusing recruitment efforts exclusively on students from affluent background to maximize tuition revenue, thereby creating a more financially stable institution. Correct answer is A. Developing enrollment targets based on a thorough analysis of historical admission data, current market demand for specific programs, and the university's capacity to deliver quality education, ensuring all recruitment efforts are aligned with the established admission criteria. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admission processes, all within the specific regulatory framework of Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing a strategic planning approach that is not only effective in achieving institutional objectives, but also adheres strictly to the established admission guidelines and principles of academic integrity. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of past admission data, current market trends relevant to higher education in Jordan, and an analysis of the university's resource capacity. This approach is justified by the regulatory framework of Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam, which implicitly mandates a data-driven and resource-aware strategy to maintain academic standards and institutional reputation. Ethical considerations are met by ensuring that strategic planning does not compromise the fairness or integrity of the admission process, thereby upholding the trust placed in the university by prospective students and the wider community. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing enrollment numbers without considering the academic preparedness of applicants would fail to meet the implicit regulatory requirement for maintaining academic quality. This could lead to a decline in graduate employability and damage the university's standing, violating the spirit of the entrance exam's purpose. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the recruitment of students from specific socioeconomic backgrounds without a clear, objective, and transparent selection criterion would be ethically problematic and could violate principles of equal opportunity, potentially contravening university policies on non-discrimination. A third incorrect approach that neglects to align strategic enrollment targets with the university's faculty and infrastructure capacity would lead to an unsustainable operational burden, potentially compromising the quality of education delivered, and thus failing to meet the university's core mission as outlined in its foundational regulations. Professionals should employ a decision-making process that begins with a thorough understanding of the university's mission and strategic objectives. This should be followed by an assessment of the current operational and academic landscape, considering all relevant internal and external factors. The next step involves identifying potential strategic options and evaluating each against the university's regulatory framework, ethical guidelines, and resource constraints. Finally, The chosen strategy should be implemented with robust monitoring and evaluation mechanisms to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 8. During the evaluation of preparation materials for the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam, a student discovers a discrepancy between the topics covered in the official syllabus and a widely circulated online study guide that claims to be an insider's compilation of frequently tested areas. The student is unsure which source to trust for their preparation. Option A. Prioritize the online study guide, assuming it contains more current or relevant information than the official syllabus, as it is popular among other applicants. Option B. Attempt to cross-reference information from multiple unofficial online forums and student discussions to piece together what is likely to be on the exam. Option C. Rely on general knowledge in common academic subjects, believing that the university will test fundamental understanding rather than specific syllabus details. Option D. Proactively consult the official Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam guidelines, or contact the admissions office to clarify the definitive scope of the exam and acceptable preparation resources. The correct answer is D. Proactively consult the official Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam guidelines, or contact the admissions office to clarify the definitive scope of the exam and acceptable preparation resources. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead to unethical shortcuts. Therefore, careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and honesty. The correct approach involves a student proactively seeking clarification and assistance from authorized university channels when encountering unfamiliar or potentially problematic material. This demonstrates a commitment to understanding the exam scope and adhering to its rules. Specifically, consulting the official Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam guidelines, or directly contacting the admissions office for clarification on the scope of the exam and acceptable preparation methods, is the most appropriate action. This aligns with the university's regulatory framework, which implicitly or explicitly mandates honesty and adherence to stated examination parameters. By seeking guidance, the student avoids any potential misinterpretation or violation of exam regulations, thereby upholding academic integrity. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general knowledge or information found on unofficial online forums is sufficient or permissible for exam preparation without verification. This fails to acknowledge the specific regulatory framework of the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam. Relying on unverified sources can lead to preparing with irrelevant material or, worse, engaging in practices that indirectly violate academic integrity, such as using materials that might be considered unauthorized study aids. Another incorrect approach is to attempt to infer the exam's content or difficulty based on anecdotal evidence from past applicants or unofficial study groups. This bypasses the official channels of information provided by the university and can lead to a skewed understanding of the exam's requirements. It disregards the university's authority in defining the scope and nature of its entrance examination, potentially leading to inadequate or misdirected preparation, and a failure to comply with the spirit of the examination process. A further incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed and perceived efficiency by using readily available but unverified online summaries, or cheat sheets, without confirming their authenticity or relevance to the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the established academic standards and the specific requirements set forth by the university. It prioritizes a superficial engagement with the material over a genuine understanding, which is contrary to the principles of academic assessment. The professional reasoning process for students facing such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's stated examination policies and a commitment to seeking official clarification when in doubt. This involves prioritizing official communication channels, critically evaluating the source of information, and always acting in a manner that upholds academic integrity. When faced with ambiguity, the default action should be to seek guidance from the institution itself, rather than relying on external, unverified sources. Question 9. Strategic planning requires a university to consider various approaches to student recruitment and program development. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of academic integrity and long-term institutional sustainability for Al Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam framework? Option A. Making strategic decisions based on the personal recommendations of influential individuals or groups, bypassing the established entrance examination criteria. Option B. Focusing recruitment efforts on achieving the highest possible enrollment numbers in the immediate academic year, even if it means lowering admission standards. Option C. Prioritizing the recruitment of students from specific regions or backgrounds to meet diversity quotas, irrespective of their academic qualifications. Option D. Developing a comprehensive strategy that analyzes current student performance, future academic program needs, and external market demands to inform admission targets and resource allocation. The correct answer is D. Developing a comprehensive strategy that analyzes current student performance, future academic program needs, and external market demands to inform admission targets and resource allocation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admission processes, all within the specific regulatory framework of Al Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam guidelines. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing a strategic planning approach that upholds academic integrity and equal opportunity, while also considering the university's resource allocation and future development. Careful judgment is required to avoid approaches that could compromise the fairness of the entrance exam or lead to misallocation of resources. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and data-driven evaluation of the university's current standing, future aspirations, and the external environment, ensuring that any strategic decisions are aligned with the established admission criteria and the university's mission. This approach is justified by the implicit regulatory framework of any reputable educational institution, which mandates fairness, transparency, and meritocracy in admissions. Specifically, it aligns with the spirit of Al Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam, which is designed to assess candidates based on their academic potential and suitability for higher education, thereby ensuring that admitted students are well-equipped to succeed and contribute to the university community. This method prioritizes objective assessment and long-term institutional health over short-term gains or external pressures. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate enrollment numbers without a rigorous assessment of candidate quality would fail to uphold the academic standards expected of Al Hussein bin Talal University. This could lead to a decline in the overall academic profile of the student body and potentially impact the university's reputation and accreditation. Such an approach would be ethically questionable, as it undermines the principle of meritocracy. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on recruiting students from specific demographic groups without considering their academic preparedness would also be problematic. While diversity is often a desirable goal, it must be achieved through inclusive practices that do not compromise the integrity of the admission process or the academic rigor of the programs. This approach could lead to a situation where students are admitted who are not adequately prepared for university-level studies, resulting in higher dropout rates and a negative impact on the learning environment for all students. A third incorrect approach that involves making strategic decisions based on anecdotal evidence or personal biases, rather than objective data and established procedures, would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This would introduce subjectivity and unfairness into the strategic planning process, potentially leading to decisions that do not serve the best interests of the university or its students. It would also violate the implicit requirement for evidence-based decision-making that underpins all credible institutional planning. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of all relevant factors, including academic performance, institutional goals, resource availability, and ethical considerations. Professionals should consult university policies, admission guidelines, and relevant ethical codes to ensure their decisions are compliant and responsible. They should prioritize objective data, seek diverse perspectives, and engage in transparent communication throughout the planning process. Question 10. Performance analysis shows that a significant portion of applicants to Al Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam provide detailed personal information that could be valuable for understanding admission trends and improving the selection process. As an administrator handling these applications, you are asked by the university's admissions committee to provide anonymized data for their internal performance review. The applicant has not explicitly consented to this specific use of their data, though the general terms and conditions of the application process mention data usage for institutional purposes. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Refuse to share any data, even anonymized, to strictly adhere to the principle of client confidentiality, as specific consent for this analysis was not provided. Option B. Share the anonymized data directly with the admissions committee, as the general terms and conditions of the application process permit data usage for institutional purposes. Option C. Obtain explicit, written consent from each applicant before sharing any anonymized data for the university's performance analysis. Option D. Share the anonymized data, assuming that the anonymization process completely removes any possibility of re-identification, and thus negates the need for explicit consent. The correct answer is C. Obtain explicit, written consent from each applicant before sharing any anonymized data for the university's performance analysis. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation of maintaining client confidentiality and the university's need for accurate admissions data. The core tension lies between protecting sensitive personal information and fulfilling institutional reporting requirements. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing interests without compromising either. The correct approach involves seeking explicit, informed consent from the applicant before sharing any information, even if anonymized, with the university's admissions department for performance analysis. This upholds the fundamental ethical principle of client confidentiality, which is paramount in any professional relationship. Specifically, under the general ethical guidelines expected of individuals interacting with university systems and applicant data, consent is the cornerstone of data sharing. Sharing information without consent, even if anonymized, risks violating privacy expectations and could lead to a breach of trust. The university's internal performance analysis, while important for institutional improvement, must be conducted in a manner that respects individual rights and privacy. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with sharing anonymized data without obtaining consent. This fails to acknowledge the applicant's right to control their personal information. Even though the data is anonymized, the act of sharing it without permission constitutes a breach of the implicit trust established during the application process. Another incorrect approach would be to refuse to share any data whatsoever, even anonymized, if the university explicitly requests it for legitimate performance analysis. While prioritizing confidentiality is correct, an absolute refusal without exploring consent options could hinder the university's ability to improve its admissions processes, potentially impacting future applicants. A third incorrect approach would be to share identifiable information under the guise of anonymization, believing that the process is foolproof. This is a severe ethical and potentially legal failure, as it directly violates confidentiality and privacy. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the core ethical principles at play: confidentiality, honesty, respect for privacy. 2. Understanding the specific institutional policies and guidelines governing data handling and applicant information. 3. Assessing the potential risks and benefits of each course of action. 4. Prioritizing the least intrusive yet effective method to achieve the objective, which in this case is obtaining informed consent. 5. Documenting all decisions and communications regarding data sharing. Question 11. Strategic planning requires a proactive approach to potential challenges. If a department head at Hussein bin Talal University suggests adjusting the scoring criteria for the entrance exam to meet a specific enrollment target, what is the most appropriate initial step to ensure compliance with university regulations and ethical admission practices? Option A. Implement the suggested scoring adjustment to ensure the enrollment target is met, as departmental goals are paramount. Option B. Immediately consult the official Hussein bin Talal University academic regulations and the specific guidelines for the entrance examination to determine the feasibility and procedural requirements for any such adjustment. Option C. Proceed with the exam as scheduled without any modifications, assuming the current process is sufficient. Option D. Discuss the suggestion informally with senior faculty members to gauge their opinion before taking any action. The correct answer is B. Immediately consult the official Hussein bin Talal University academic regulations and the specific guidelines for the entrance examination to determine the feasibility and procedural requirements for any such adjustment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admission processes. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can tempt individuals to overlook established procedures, potentially compromising the integrity of the entrance exam. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic standards and institutional reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's admission regulations and the established examination guidelines. This approach prioritizes adherence to the documented framework, ensuring that any proposed changes or considerations are evaluated against existing rules and ethical principles. Specifically, it requires consulting the university's official academic policies and the specific directives governing the entrance examination to determine the appropriate course of action. This ensures that decisions are made within the established legal and ethical boundaries set by the university and relevant Jordanian educational authorities, safeguarding the fairness and credibility of the admission process. An incorrect approach that involves immediately implementing a change based on external pressure without consulting the university's official regulations fails to uphold the principles of good governance and academic integrity. This bypasses the established procedural safeguards designed to ensure fairness and transparency. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the potential issue and proceed with the exam as originally planned without any review, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to proactively address potential irregularities. This could lead to unforeseen complications or challenges to the admission process later. A further incorrect approach, which is to seek informal advice from colleagues without referencing official university policies, risks misinterpretation or the application of personal biases rather than established regulatory requirements. This informal method lacks the authority and rigor of consulting official documentation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, identify the core issue and its potential implications. Second, consult the relevant official university regulations, policies, and guidelines. Third, assess the situation against these established frameworks. Fourth, seek clarification from appropriate university authorities if ambiguity exists. And finally, make a decision that is both compliant with regulations and ethically sound, prioritizing the integrity of the academic process. Question 12. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential instance of academic misconduct during the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance examination, specifically concerning the unauthorized use of external resources during a timed assessment. The examination board is tasked with addressing this allegation. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action? Strictly adhering to the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's regulatory framework for entrance examinations. Option A. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged misconduct, gathering all relevant evidence and providing the student with an opportunity to respond, in accordance with the university's academic integrity policy. Option B. Ignore the feedback as it is merely an allegation and not concrete proof of wrongdoing. Option C. Immediately disqualify the student from the entrance examination based on the initial report, without further inquiry. Option D. Advise the student to withdraw their application voluntarily to avoid further scrutiny. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged misconduct, gathering all relevant evidence and providing the student with an opportunity to respond, in accordance with the university's academic integrity policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead some students to seek unfair advantages. The university, represented by the examination board, has a responsibility to uphold the credibility of its admissions process and ensure that all candidates are evaluated on their own merits. This requires a robust understanding and application of the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's specific examination regulations and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the student's submitted work against the established examination rules, focusing on identifying any evidence of academic misconduct. This requires a systematic and objective evaluation, adhering strictly to the procedures outlined in the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's academic integrity policy. The ethical justification lies in fairness to all applicants and maintaining the integrity of the university's admissions process. By following the prescribed investigation protocol, the examination board upholds its duty to ensure a level playing field and prevent any form of academic dishonesty from influencing admission decisions. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns without proper investigation. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity and could allow a student who has engaged in misconduct to gain an unfair advantage. Ethically, this is a failure of due diligence and a breach of fairness to other applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student based on suspicion alone, without allowing them an opportunity to respond or present their case. This violates principles of natural justice and due process, which are implicitly part of any fair regulatory framework. The university must follow established procedures for handling allegations of academic misconduct. A third incorrect approach would be to apply a penalty that is disproportionate to the alleged offense, or to deviate from the established disciplinary procedures. This undermines the consistency and fairness of the university's regulatory framework and could lead to legal or reputational challenges. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Acknowledging and documenting the feedback or suspicion of misconduct. 2. Consulting the relevant Al-Hussein bin Talal University regulations and policies regarding academic integrity and examination procedures. 3. Initiating a formal investigation process as stipulated by the university. 4. Gathering all relevant evidence objectively. 5. Providing the student with an opportunity to be heard and respond to allegations. 6. Making a decision based on the evidence and in accordance with university regulations. 7. Applying any necessary sanctions or actions consistently and fairly. Question 13. The audit findings indicate a pattern of minor discrepancies in supporting documents submitted by several applicants for the upcoming academic year. As an admissions officer, you have identified one such applicant whose documentation appears to have a slight inconsistency in the dates provided for a previous academic qualification. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure the integrity of the admissions process while upholding fairness to the applicant? Option A. Immediately reject the application due to the date discrepancy, as all documentation must be perfect. Option B. Overlook the minor discrepancy to expedite the processing of the application, as it is unlikely to impact the applicant's overall qualifications. Option C. Discuss the applicant's specific documentation issue with colleagues in other departments who are not involved in the admissions decision to seek their opinion. Option D. Contact the applicant to politely request clarification or additional documentation to resolve the inconsistency. The correct answer is A. Immediately reject the application due to the date discrepancy, as all documentation must be perfect. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between the university's internal policies and the ethical obligations of an admissions officer. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need to uphold institutional integrity with the responsibility to ensure fair and equitable treatment of all applicants. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing demands without compromising ethical standards or violating established procedures. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's documentation against the established admission criteria, seeking clarification from the applicant if any discrepancies are found, and documenting all interactions and decisions meticulously. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible because it adheres to the principles of fairness, transparency, and due diligence. Specifically, it aligns with the general ethical expectations of professional conduct in academic institutions, which prioritize objective evaluation based on merit and adherence to stated policies. By seeking clarification and maintaining thorough records, the admissions officer demonstrates a commitment to an unbiased process and provides a clear audit trail, which is crucial for accountability and integrity. An incorrect approach that involves immediately rejecting the application based on a perceived minor discrepancy without seeking further information or clarification is professionally unacceptable. This fails to uphold the principle of fairness, as it presumes guilt or misrepresentation without due process. It also risks violating the university's own policies if those policies allow for minor discrepancies to be resolved through further inquiry. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the discrepancy entirely to expedite the process, is also professionally unsound. This undermines the integrity of the admissions process by failing to apply the established criteria consistently and fairly. It can lead to perceptions of favoritism or a lack of rigor, damaging the university's reputation. Finally, an approach that involves discussing the specific details of the applicant's situation with other staff members who are not directly involved in the admissions decision, without the applicant's explicit consent, constitutes a breach of confidentiality and professional ethics. This violates the privacy of the applicant and can lead to the spread of misinformation or biased opinions. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines. This involves first understanding the specific requirements of the university's admissions policy. Second, it requires an objective assessment of the applicant's submission against these requirements. Third, if ambiguities or discrepancies arise, the professional should follow established procedures for seeking clarification, which may involve direct communication with the applicant or consultation with a supervisor. Throughout this process, maintaining detailed and accurate records of all actions taken and decisions made is paramount for transparency and accountability. Question 14. Governance review demonstrates that a prospective student, who is a candidate for the Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam, has experienced a significant personal emergency in the days leading up to the examination, impacting their preparation and performance. The student has formally requested a special consideration, specifically asking to be allowed to retake a section of the exam. Based on the university's established entrance examination regulations, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Advise the student to consult with a faculty advisor to determine if any informal adjustments can be made to their application score. Option B. Direct the student to the university's Academic Appeals Committee or the designated office for special circumstances to formally submit their request for review. In accordance with university policy, Option C. Allow the student to retake the affected section of the exam immediately as a gesture of goodwill given the extenuating circumstances. Option D. Inform the student that the examination results are final and that no exceptions can be made, as per the standardized examination policy. The correct answer is C. Allow the student to retake the affected section of the exam immediately as a gesture of goodwill given the extenuating circumstances. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to a student's personal circumstances. The university's entrance exam regulations, as stipulated by Hussein bin Talal University's framework, prioritize fairness and standardized assessment for all applicants, introducing subjective leniency based on external factors, without a clear, predefined policy for such exceptions, risks undermining the validity of the entrance examination process and creating an uneven playing field. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established examination protocols and policies. This means ensuring that all candidates are assessed under the same conditions, and that any appeals or special considerations are handled through the formal, documented channels outlined by the university. This approach upholds the principle of equal opportunity and maintains the credibility of the entrance examination as a fair measure of academic readiness. The regulatory justification lies in the university's commitment to transparent and equitable admission processes, which are typically governed by internal regulations and academic board decisions that emphasize objective assessment. An incorrect approach would be to grant a special accommodation without proper authorization or a clear policy. This could involve allowing the student to retake a portion of the exam or providing additional time without a documented basis for such an exception. This action would violate the principle of fairness by treating one applicant differently from others, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism and compromising the integrity of the examination. Ethically, it would be a breach of professional conduct to deviate from established procedures without due process. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's request outright without exploring any potential, albeit formal, avenues for accommodation. While strict adherence to rules is important, a complete disregard for a student's stated difficulties, without considering if any university policy exists to address such situations, could be perceived as lacking empathy and potentially overlooking a legitimate, albeit rare, circumstance that might warrant a formal review. However, the primary failure here is not in the lack of empathy, but in failing to follow the established process for handling such requests, which would involve directing the student to the appropriate university office or committee responsible for academic appeals or special circumstances. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a systematic evaluation of the university's existing policies and procedures. Professionals must first identify the relevant regulations governing examinations and student admissions. If a situation arises that appears to fall outside standard procedures, the next step is to consult with the relevant university authorities or departments, e.g., admissions office, academic affairs, to determine if any established protocols exist for handling exceptional circumstances. If no such protocol exists, the responsible action is to escalate the matter to higher administrative levels for guidance and potential policy development, rather than making an ad hoc decision. The overarching principle is to ensure that any action taken is consistent with the university's commitment to fairness, transparency, and academic integrity. Question 15. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a data breach impacting student application records due to outdated IT infrastructure, alongside a low likelihood of a significant increase in applicant numbers requiring additional faculty resources. Which of the following represents the most appropriate initial step in addressing these identified risks within the Al-Hussein bin Talal University Entrance Exam Framework? Option A. Prioritize immediate allocation of funds for a complete IT system overhaul to eliminate the data breach risk, while deferring any planning for increased applicant numbers. Option B. Implement a temporary low-cost security patch for the IT system and monitor the situation without further proactive planning for either risk, assuming the likelihoods are not critically high. Option C. Focus solely on managing the potential increase in applicant numbers by immediately initiating discussions with the Human Resources Department about potential faculty hiring, as this poses a more tangible operational challenge. Option D. Conduct a detailed review of the risk matrix, cross-referencing the identified risks with Al-Hussein bin Talal University's established IT security policies and admissions capacity guidelines to inform a balanced mitigation strategy. The correct answer is A. Prioritize immediate allocation of funds for a complete IT system overhaul to eliminate the data breach risk, while deferring any planning for increased applicant numbers. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent subjectivity in risk assessment and the potential for bias to influence decisions, especially when dealing with limited resources or competing priorities. The university entrance exam context requires a rigorous and fair evaluation process, adhering to established academic and administrative guidelines. Careful judgment is needed to ensure that risk mitigation strategies are both effective and equitable, without compromising the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review of the risk matrix, followed by a collaborative discussion among relevant stakeholders to determine appropriate mitigation actions. This process ensures that all identified risks are considered, potential impacts are understood, and the chosen strategies are aligned with the university's objectives and regulatory framework. Specifically, referencing the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's internal admissions policies and any relevant Jordanian higher education regulations would be paramount. This systematic approach promotes transparency, accountability, and consistency in decision-making, thereby upholding ethical standards and regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach would be to unilaterally implement mitigation strategies based on personal intuition or anecdotal evidence, without consulting the full risk matrix or relevant university policies. This bypasses the structured assessment process, potentially leading to ineffective or unfair outcomes. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss certain risks as low priority without a documented rationale or comparative analysis against other identified risks, which could violate principles of due diligence and risk management. Furthermore, failing to document the decision-making process for risk mitigation leaves the university vulnerable to challenges and undermines transparency. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the identified risks and their potential impact. This involves consulting all available data, including the risk matrix and relevant institutional policies and regulations. Next, stakeholders should engage in open discussion to evaluate potential mitigation strategies, considering their feasibility, effectiveness, and alignment with institutional values and compliance requirements. Finally, decisions should be clearly documented, including the rationale behind the chosen mitigation actions, to ensure accountability and facilitate future review. Question 16. Investigation of a student's inquiry during the Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam preparation period, where the student asks for clarification on how to properly cite sources for their practice essays, but the phrasing suggests a potential misunderstanding of original work versus compilation. Option A. Ignore the student's question, assuming it is a minor concern and not a direct indication of potential academic dishonesty. Option B. Engage in a direct conversation with the student, explaining the university's strict policies against plagiarism and the importance of original thought in academic work, while offering resources on proper citation methods for genuine academic work. Option C. Advise the student to focus solely on memorizing key concepts for the exam, implying that detailed essay writing and citation are secondary concerns for this specific entrance assessment. Option D. Provide the student with pre-written essay templates and examples, suggesting they adapt these to answer practice questions, without explicitly detailing the nuances of plagiarism. The correct answer is B. Engage in a direct conversation with the student, explaining the university's strict policies against plagiarism and the importance of original thought in academic work, while offering resources on proper citation methods for genuine academic work. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam can lead students to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while acknowledging the student's aspirations. The correct approach involves a direct and honest conversation with the student about the university's policies on academic misconduct and the severe consequences of plagiarism. This approach prioritizes transparency and education, reinforcing the university's values. Specifically, it aligns with Hussein bin Talal University's stated commitment to academic integrity and ethical conduct, as typically outlined in student handbooks and examination regulations. These regulations universally prohibit plagiarism and any form of academic dishonesty, emphasizing that all submitted work must be the student's own original creation. By addressing the issue directly and explaining the university's stance, the instructor upholds these principles and guides the student towards ethical behavior. An incorrect approach of ignoring the student's query and proceeding with the exam without addressing the potential for plagiarism fails to uphold the university's responsibility to maintain academic standards. This inaction implicitly condones unethical behavior and creates an environment where academic dishonesty might be perceived as acceptable. Another incorrect approach, that of immediately reporting the student for suspected plagiarism without further inquiry, is premature and potentially unfair. While vigilance against plagiarism is crucial, a direct conversation allows for clarification and education, which is often the first step in addressing such issues within an academic setting. This approach bypasses the opportunity for formative guidance and could lead to an unwarranted disciplinary action. A further incorrect approach, that of providing the student with answers or guidance that could be construed as assisting in plagiarism, is a direct violation of academic integrity principles. This action not only compromises the fairness of the examination process, but also actively participates in academic misconduct, leading to severe ethical and regulatory breaches. The professional reasoning process for such situations involves a commitment to upholding academic integrity, fostering an ethical learning environment, and providing students with clear guidance on expected standards of conduct. When faced with potential academic misconduct, professionals should first seek to understand the situation through direct communication, educate the individual about relevant policies and consequences, and then take appropriate action based on the university's established procedures. This balanced approach ensures fairness, promotes ethical development, and protects the integrity of the institution. Question 17. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive and ethical approach to the development and administration of entrance examinations to ensure fairness and academic integrity. Considering the potential for bias and the need for confidentiality, Which of the following best represents a robust strategy for Al-Hussein bin Talal University's entrance exam process? Option A. Expediting the exam creation by assigning the task to a few senior faculty members who have historically contributed to exam development, trusting their experience to ensure quality and relevance. Option B. Developing exam content through a collaborative process involving a diverse committee of faculty members, with clear guidelines for question design, review, and validation, and implementing strict protocols for maintaining exam security and confidentiality throughout the entire process. Option C. Allowing the head of the admissions department to solely determine the final exam content based on their understanding of the university's needs, without formal review by academic staff. Option D. Seeking informal feedback on draft exam questions from a limited number of trusted colleagues outside the immediate exam committee, assuming their professional discretion. The correct answer is B. Developing exam content through a collaborative process involving a diverse committee of faculty members, with clear guidelines for question design, review, and validation, and implementing strict protocols for maintaining exam security and confidentiality throughout the entire process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of ensuring fair and transparent admission processes. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential conflicts of interest that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam, a critical component of Al-Hussein bin Talal University's admissions. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's reputation and ensure that all applicants are evaluated on merit. The correct approach involves establishing clear, documented policies and procedures for the exam development and administration process, with a strong emphasis on impartiality and confidentiality. This includes rigorous vetting of question writers and examiners to prevent bias and the disclosure of sensitive information. Adherence to these established protocols ensures that the examination process is fair, objective, and defensible, aligning with the principles of good governance and academic integrity expected of a reputable educational institution. Such a structured approach minimizes the risk of undue influence and upholds the trust placed in the university by prospective students and the wider community. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness in question development, by relying on a small, familiar group of faculty without a formal review process, fails to adequately safeguard against potential bias or errors. This can lead to questions that are not representative of the required knowledge or that inadvertently favor certain backgrounds. Another incorrect approach, which involves sharing draft exam questions with external parties for feedback without a strict confidentiality agreement and a clear understanding of the scope of feedback, risks compromising the exam's security and integrity. This could lead to unauthorized disclosure of exam content, undermining the fairness of the assessment. A third incorrect approach, which is to delegate the entire exam creation process to a single individual without oversight or peer review, concentrates too much power and increases the likelihood of subjective biases or oversights going unnoticed, thereby compromising the validity and reliability of the examination. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core objective, fair, and valid assessment, then systematically evaluates potential risks to that objective bias, security breaches, errors. This is followed by developing and implementing robust controls and procedures to mitigate these risks, ensuring that all actions are documented and transparent. Regular review and adaptation of these procedures are also crucial to maintain effectiveness. Question 18. The evaluation methodology shows that a student is preparing for an upcoming assessment at Al-Hussein bin Talal University and is unsure about the extent to which they can use online resources and collaborate with peers on their project. The student wants to ensure their submission is of high quality, but is concerned about inadvertently violating academic integrity policies. Which of the following actions best reflects a responsible and ethical approach to this situation? Option A. Proceed with using online resources and peer input extensively, assuming that any form of assistance that improves the final output is permissible. Option B. Rely heavily on a peer who has a strong understanding of the subject matter, allowing them to guide the majority of the project's content and structure. Option C. Submit the project with minimal external input, fearing that any collaboration or use of external resources might be misinterpreted as academic misconduct. Option D. Proactively consult the course instructor or the university's academic integrity office for clear guidance on acceptable collaboration and resource usage before commencing the project. Correct answer is D. Proactively consult the course instructor or the university's academic integrity office for clear guidance on acceptable collaboration and resource usage before commencing the project. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their best work and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the assessment accurately reflects the student's individual understanding and effort rather than the work of others, while still encouraging collaboration and learning. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate academic assistance and academic misconduct. The correct approach involves a student seeking clarification on the boundaries of acceptable collaboration and resource utilization directly from the course instructor or the university's academic integrity office. This demonstrates a proactive commitment to understanding and adhering to the Hussein bin Talal University's academic regulations. Specifically, this approach aligns with the university's likely emphasis on academic honesty, which is a cornerstone of any reputable educational institution. By seeking guidance, the student is acting ethically and responsibly, ensuring their work meets the required standards and avoids any potential accusations of plagiarism or academic dishonesty. This proactive step is crucial for maintaining the integrity of the academic process and fostering a culture of trust and fairness. An incorrect approach would be to submit work that is heavily influenced by or directly copied from external sources without proper attribution. This constitutes academic misconduct, specifically plagiarism, which is a serious violation of academic integrity policies. Such an action undermines the purpose of the assessment, which is to gauge the student's own learning and critical thinking abilities. It also disrespects the intellectual property of others and devalues the efforts of students who adhere to ethical standards. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on peer assistance without understanding the underlying concepts. While collaboration can be beneficial, if it leads to a student submitting work they do not comprehend, it fails to meet the learning objectives of the course. This can be seen as a form of academic dishonesty, as the student is presenting themselves as having achieved a level of understanding they have not genuinely attained. This also bypasses the intended learning process and can lead to future academic difficulties. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the university's guidelines on academic integrity altogether and proceed with the assumption that any form of assistance is permissible. This demonstrates a lack of respect for the institution's rules and a disregard for the principles of academic honesty. It is a failure to engage with the fundamental expectations of university-level study and can lead to severe disciplinary actions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the Hussein bin Talal University's academic integrity policies and guidelines. When in doubt about the permissibility of any form of assistance or resource utilization, the student should always err on the side of caution and seek explicit clarification from the appropriate university authority, such as the instructor or the academic integrity office. This proactive communication is key to preventing misunderstandings and ensuring ethical conduct. Question 19. When evaluating the ethical conduct of an applicant preparing for the Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam, which of the following approaches best upholds the principles of academic integrity and fairness as stipulated by the university's regulatory framework? Option A. Offering a financial incentive to an exam administrator to overlook potential irregularities during the examination. Option B. Fabricating or exaggerating academic achievements on the application to present a more favorable profile. Option C. Discreetly seeking out individuals who may have access to past exam papers or current exam questions to gain an advantage. Option D. Relying solely on personal study and preparation, ensuring all submitted work is original and adhering strictly to all exam instructions and guidelines. The correct answer is D. Relying solely on personal study and preparation, ensuring all submitted work is original and adhering strictly to all exam instructions and guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam can lead students to seek unfair advantages. The university's regulatory framework, as embodied in its entrance exam guidelines and academic integrity policies, is designed to ensure a fair and equitable assessment process for all applicants. Therefore, any approach that compromises this integrity is unacceptable. The correct approach involves a student recognizing the ethical boundaries and understanding that academic success must be earned through legitimate means. This aligns with the Al-Hussein bin Talal University's commitment to fostering an environment of honesty and meritocracy. Specifically, the university's entrance exam guidelines likely emphasize that all submitted work must be the applicant's own, and that any form of cheating or academic dishonesty will result in severe penalties, including disqualification. Adhering to these guidelines is not just a matter of following rules, but of upholding the fundamental ethical principles of academic pursuit. An incorrect approach that involves seeking assistance from unauthorized sources, such as obtaining exam questions in advance or using prohibited aids during the exam, directly violates the university's academic integrity policy. This constitutes academic dishonesty, which undermines the validity of the examination process and is a serious ethical breach. Such actions demonstrate a lack of respect for the institution and for fellow applicants who are preparing honestly. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to bribe an invigilator or administrator, is not only a violation of academic integrity, but also a criminal offense. This demonstrates a severe ethical lapse and a disregard for the law and university regulations. It corrupts the examination process at its core and carries significant legal and disciplinary consequences. A further incorrect approach, such as misrepresenting qualifications or providing false information on the application, is also a form of dishonesty that violates the university's admissions criteria and ethical standards. This deceives the admissions committee and unfairly disadvantages other qualified applicants. The professional decision-making process for students facing such a situation should involve a clear understanding of the university's rules and regulations, a strong sense of personal integrity, and the courage to resist unethical temptations. Students should prioritize honest preparation and understand that true academic achievement is built on a foundation of integrity. If faced with pressure or uncertainty, seeking clarification from university admissions or academic advisors is a responsible and ethical step. Question 20. The control framework reveals that the Al-Hussein bin Talal University entrance exam is a critical component of the admissions process. An applicant, having heard varying accounts about the exam's format, is unsure whether it will heavily emphasize theoretical knowledge or practical application of concepts. The applicant wants to ensure they prepare effectively and ethically. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Rely on information shared by current students or alumni regarding their past experiences with the entrance exam to guide preparation. Option B. Assume the exam will be similar to entrance exams at other universities the applicant has researched and prepare accordingly. Option C. Proceed with preparation based on the applicant's strongest subject area without seeking specific guidance on the exam's format. Option D. Proactively contact the Al-Hussein bin Talal University admissions office or the relevant academic department to seek official clarification on the exam's format and expected preparation. The correct answer is D. Proactively contact the Al-Hussein bin Talal University admissions office or the relevant academic department to seek official clarification on the exam's format and expected preparation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected within a university setting, specifically Al-Hussein bin Talal University. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate response when faced with a situation that could compromise these principles. A careful judgment is required to distinguish between actions that uphold academic standards and those that could be perceived as circumventing them. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification and guidance from the appropriate university authority. This demonstrates a commitment to understanding and adhering to the university's established rules and expectations. Specifically, it involves recognizing that the entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any ambiguity regarding its format or content should be addressed through official channels. This proactive engagement with the university's admissions or academic affairs department is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible action. It aligns with the principle of transparency and ensures that the applicant approaches the examination process with full awareness of the requirements and without any undue advantage or misunderstanding. This approach respects the integrity of the examination process and the university's commitment to fair evaluation. An incorrect approach would be to assume the nature of the exam based on prior experiences or informal discussions. This fails to acknowledge the specific regulations and guidelines of Hussein bin Talal University, potentially leading to preparation that is misaligned with the actual requirements. It bypasses the established channels for obtaining accurate information, which is a failure in due diligence and respect for institutional procedures. Another incorrect approach would be to seek information from unofficial sources, such as current students or online forums, without verifying the accuracy with the university. While these sources might offer insights, they are not authoritative and could provide misleading or outdated information. Relying on such sources constitutes a failure to engage with the official regulatory framework governing the entrance examination, thereby risking noncompliance or misinterpretation of the rules. A further incorrect approach would be to ignore any perceived ambiguity and proceed with the exam without seeking clarification. This demonstrates a lack of critical engagement with the examination process and a potential disregard for the importance of understanding the rules. It suggests a passive acceptance of uncertainty rather than an active effort to ensure compliance, which is contrary to the principles of academic responsibility. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic approach. First, identify the core issue or ambiguity. Second, determine the relevant rules, regulations, or guidelines governing the situation. Third, identify the appropriate authority or resource for clarification. Fourth, proactively engage with that authority or resource to obtain accurate information. Finally, act in accordance with the clarified information and established procedures. This process emphasizes diligence, transparency, and adherence to institutional standards.